47% of employers, they're less likely to interview a candidate if they cannot find them online. Not finding anything bad about them, just simply cannot find them online. That's it. Basically, you get screened out of the process before they even got to your resume. On the flip side, about 44% of employers hired somebody based on their online presence, not their GPA, not their qualification, but simply their brand and the content and knowledge they put out there. So today we're going to be talking about LinkedIn and really just how do you position yourself? How do you use it effectively? Because so many people are leaving opportunities on the table because they're not optimizing their LinkedIn to the best of its capacity. I'm Elena. I'm a career coach, talent development professional, and former recruiter. And here we get rid of all the corporate fluff and really just give you practical things that actually drive your career forward. Now, I want to be upfront about something. Personal brand got a bad rap. It's not meant to be this thing where you become an influencer, right? Or post inspirational quotes every day or perform some kind of version of yourself that doesn't really align with who you are. That's not what we're talking about at all. Here's how I think about it as a former recruiter. A LinkedIn profile is not your resume. A resume is a document you send to somebody after they've already pretty much been expecting it, right? LinkedIn is a way to get to a point where you're actually going to be sending your resume to somebody. It's the door opener for somebody to be waiting for your resume instead of just being out there in an ATS, the applicant tracking system, with thousands of other resumes that barely get viewed. 75% of recruiters check social media before reaching out to candidates. And then also it's been studied that 54% of recruiters actually reject candidates if they have a weak online presence. Of course, this matters depending on the role you're applying for and so on, but generally speaking, you don't even need to have a controversial or a bad presence. You just have to have a really weak one, and that could potentially disqualify you. Again, if they're looking for somebody who would need to have that personal brand and you don't have it, or somebody who is in the specific spaces where it really helps to have some kind of representation of who you are out there in the digital world to the network, to the community, and you don't have that, that might actually hurt your chances. So this isn't about becoming a content creator. This is just making sure that you're not completely leaving your career digital presence blank, where you might run into a recruiter like the 54% that I mentioned, who simply will disqualify you because you don't have that online presence. So let's look at a 5-step LinkedIn audit. This is what a recruiter like myself in my previous life or other fellow recruiters would actually look for in your LinkedIn profile. Step 1, the LinkedIn profile photo. Please put a photo. A lot of people still leave the photos out, and there's a misconception that it needs to be professional, so it doesn't have to be. Listen, as long as it's not a photo from you 10 years ago or 15 years ago or even high school. I mean, I've seen people who are, in their mid-30s and they still have pictures from their high school, right? Make sure your photo actually matches who you are today. And make sure it's not a selfie. Make sure it's not with 2-3 people. I've seen those a lot too. Make sure it's just you, professional photo, potentially smiling, and just something where we can actually see you, not a photo from far away where we can't even make out your face, right? Just a professional photo you can take with your phone at home. And a fun fact is that LinkedIn profiles with photos get viewed 21 more times than those without. Not 21%, 21 more times get viewed than those without the photos. So please, simple one, put a photo. Step 2, the headline under your name is not your job title. I see still a lot of people just putting marketing manager at company X. And if you think about it, when I look at your profile as a recruiter, I'm already going to see that you're working at a company X, and I'm going to see your title. So I don't need to see it in 2 different places. And also a lot of times you'll see the company name on the right side when you're looking at the profile. So it's almost duplicating information using a very expensive real estate on LinkedIn, which is that first part under your name that is super, super visible on your profile. Instead, get creative, add another, maybe a sentence, maybe describe what you're doing and so on. You don't have to make it super long. Play around with it. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm not going to go into details. Some people put different titles that kind of match to what they're doing. Some people put a sentence about how they make an impact. I'll leave it up to you, but don't just put your duplicate information that I've already seen in your profile. Step 3, the about section. So that's essentially your audition. And it doesn't need to be like, I still see a lot of people saying, start listing their achievement or like top things, technical skills or something like that. I don't need you to repeat what's in your resume. It's not your resume. It's not necessarily your cover letter because it needs to be a little bit more general and holistic, right? Cover letters are more specific to a specific role in companies. So what I want you to put in the about section is, first of all, don't put it in third person, put it in the first person, and just tell your story. In 2 to 3 paragraphs, tell your story, what you're passionate about, what is your career story. It's actually a really great exercise because that is the question people struggle with the most in their interviews is, tell me about you. So that will give you a chance to not only tell that story in your profile, but it's also practice for when you do have an interview. And this is where you want to get a little bit more personal. You can say with the things you're passionate about, why you do what you do, what's the story behind there, right? right? So get a little bit more personal there, really highlight what is it that you're really good at and what do you want to explore as your next step, or just kind of what you're doing at the moment. Step 4, your experience section needs to focus on outcomes, not job descriptions. I don't need a bullet points of exactly what you did, because a lot of people just take job descriptions from their jobs and like plug them in there, right? And that tells me you basically don't really know what impact you're making, or maybe you just don't know what to put in that section, so you just copy paste. But here's where you can either do, again, you can do bullet points, but with actual impact and achievement. What did you do? I don't want to know what your department did. I don't want to know what your team did. I want to know what is the impact that you made in that specific company, project, team, right? You can put it in a little paragraph if you want. You can tell that story. I want to see metrics if it makes sense. So if you're in a sales role, I want to see how many sales you've done, what's the percentage of targets met, and so on. If you manage the team members or manage budgets, I want to know those numbers. So putting metrics and actual impact and experience and range would really help for your application. And step 5, activity matters more than you would imagine. If you are, of course, listen, if you're just not interested, you don't really care about moving up, then this part is not for you. But if you're interested in building that network, building that personal brand to your community, to your network, LinkedIn is still the best platform to do that. Unless you have some other specific community where people, you know who you are, and that's where you need to hang out, fine. I leave that up to you. But for majority of the roles today, LinkedIn is still the spot to hang out at, essentially. And so, for example, if I'm looking for a marketing person, right, who I would like them to have a little bit of activity online. If I'm looking at a marketing person who I see that has been building a brand online, sharing knowledge, maybe they're attending some events, they're sharing their learnings from the events. Maybe I can also see their portfolio from their LinkedIn and so on. I see they're really passionate. I see that they've been doing this for many years. And I see now they're, for example, maybe they're learning about how to use AI in marketing. I see this person as a continuous learner. It also builds credibility for me beyond just their resume. I see them in action versus a person who is, applying for the same role, but has a very just complete ghost profile, hasn't been engaged for a couple of years. That will kind of raise a concern for me. And ultimately, you want to go for the candidate who is really passionate, really excited about the work that you're doing, and actually sharing that knowledge, because it also showcases you that they're interested in it. And that's the person you want to hire. So you don't need to post every day, but start posting. There's tons of content out there about how often to post, what to post. So I'll leave that up to you. But if you're not already posting or engaging in some baby steps, please reconsider and start doing that. So LinkedIn is not optional anymore. It's not a nice to have. In 2026, it's a must have. Unless a new platform comes along, LinkedIn is where it's at. So love it or hate it, you got to be engaged, you got to play the game. That is where you build credibility, trust, and people get to know you before they even meet you, before they even see your resume. Too many jobs are found on LinkedIn through the content, through the engagement, and so on, because again, it just shows that credibility, and people feel like they already know you before they even met you. And that's what you want. They've seen your work, they see how you're passionate about things, they see how you progress and learn. That is beautiful to see. And as recruiters, it makes my life a lot easier, honestly, and I know other recruiters appreciate it. So, do the LinkedIn audit. We discussed 5 steps. You got the photo, the headline, the about section, outcomes in your experience, and one piece of activity. That's it. That's the whole thing. You don't need to overdo it. Baby steps. Do it this week. And if this was helpful, please share it, subscribe, share it with somebody who might be job searching or maybe looking at their, redoing their LinkedIn profile. Frankly speaking, you don't need to pay somebody a ton of money to redo your LinkedIn profile. There's a lot of content and information online. You can really figure that out. And if this audit helps, I hope that's a great place for you to start. And I'll see you in the next one.